Hello there, aquatic adventurers. Welcome back to Musicland Stories, the origin point for all music and adventure stories in the known universe, and some of the unknown ones. And we're here at the Musicland Concert Hall. I'm your trusted narrator, the Captain. And wow, have you ever been blasted out of a blue whale's blowhole before? Because it is quite the roller coaster, let me tell you. You see, my crew and I had been trying to find the legendary sea creature called the Last Leviathan, with the goal of trying to record its glorious song. And just when we'd given up hope and started heading home, we accidentally found it. Or part of it anyway. It turns out that the Last Leviathan had the magical ability to split itself into 7 smaller fish, and it was singing that song like a call to find the other parts of itself. 3 mini leviathans that we found had gotten trapped in the belly of a big blue whale, the very same one that swallowed us, and then shot us out of its blowhole like a big cetacean sneeze. That's the sciencey word for whales. Which is how we found ourselves flying through the air on a stream of sticky water. But my brave young crew was not concerned. Mingus was trying to use his sign language to communicate with the 3 little leviathans, while Ezra played his harmonica to try and match their vibes. Kaylee was the only one who could sort through the sound and pinpoint the right frequencies that made our magical fish friends sing. Omar had his ear on the conch shell, hoping to memorize the melody of the Leviathan song. And Margie, well, she held it all together with a steady rhythm and the confidence of a natural leader. Then our submarine landed like a big metal belly flop, splashing on the surface of the sea. We all stumbled a bit, struggling to keep our sea legs straight and prevent the fish tank with the Last Leviathanettes from spilling out onto the floor. We were already low on fuel, and now we had no idea where the whale had spit us out. I opened my mouth to share my concerns, but the kids were already 2 steps ahead of me. "We need to reunite the Last Leviathans," Margie said. "Even if it means we're stuck on the other side of the ocean. We can't go home until we make this right." I tried to protest, but the crew stood firm. They were good kids like that. So I smiled. Let's find ourselves some fish. Then I pulled out my trusty baton and fired up the portal. The 3 little leviathans were like our own special sonar, singing their song and waiting to hear where it bounced back to them. I followed their lead, with Mingus as our translator, and summoned a portal that followed the fabled tune to the very, very top of a waterfall. Oh, great. Splashing down from one height to another one. I probably should have stopped, thought things through, and made a plan before I teleported. But hey, we were on a roll. And in a moment, we were about to roll all the way down a steep, watery cliff. "Where is the Leviathan?" I shouted. But Omar was ahead of me. He opened up the airlock and tooted out a triumphant call from his conch shell, which already had the song of the Last Leviathan inside it. He used the echo from the seashell to amplify the fish inside our ship, so their song carried all the way across the canyon. And there we saw it, a gleaming golden fish head, breaching the bubbling surface of the water just before the edge. It swam upstream against the current, racing towards the sound of its siblings, as our submarine rushed towards it, too. Mingus used his washtub base to anchor us in place, while Kaylee carried the fish tank out to the airlock for the family reunion. And oh, it was a glorious moment as the fish leaped up into our ship. And just in time, I fired up the portal again, draining our fuel reserves even further. With moments to spare, we toppled down the waterfall. But that portal caught us just in time and placed us down right into a raging river full of foaming rapids. So, not much better than a waterfall, but hey, you gotta take some risks if you want to rock and roll, right? This time, Margie took point, listening for the rhythm in the waves as they crashed against the rocks, and used that to navigate our ship through the rough current. Then it was Ezra's turn. He played his harmonica harder than before, creating a blanket of sound to smother the sizzling noise of the rapids, muting them just enough that the fifth little Leviathan could hear. Yes! There it was! Right down the river, singing back to its siblings on our ship. Kaylee came out with a net and closed her eyes. What was she? Of course! She was listening! Using those hyper-focus skills she developed on our journey, she was able to pick the melody from the air and figure out precisely when we'd be in range of our magic little fish friend. Margie steered us closer. Then Kaylee swooped her net into the water, scooping up another lonely piece of the last Leviathan. She dropped the golden fish into the tank with the rest of its family, and the five of them, reunited, sang a sweeter song than we'd ever heard before. We were so close to the true last Leviathan that we could almost taste the music in the air. Or maybe that was just the salty ocean spray from all the rapids. Blech. Yeah, never mind. I pinged another portal, and this time we landed with the thud. Oof. Ow. Another iceberg. On the opposite end of the earth this time. But still, at least we weren't in a rush of water. Though I suppose an iceberg is just a big chunk of frozen water anyway. We could hear the next piece of the last Leviathan singing somewhere underneath us. All the ice seemed to deflect the sound, making it hard to figure out exactly where it was coming from. But there was definitely something out there, judging by the call and response going on with the 5 little Leviathans on our ship. Of course, we were also at the mercy of the iceberg we had landed on, which was surprisingly hard to steer from the cockpit of a submarine. And not like we had fuel to spare, not even an extra portal that could blink us off the iceberg. We barely had the fumes to make it one more trip. But Kaylee had an idea. You see, ice always has a sound of its own, and she listened for the singing frequencies within it. She called for Ezra and Mingus to come with their instruments and talk them through a piercing glissando note that resonated just enough to crack the ice in half. Our ship crashed down into the chilly water, and once the bubbles from our splashdown faded away, there it was, right in front of us. The 6th piece of the last Leviathan. Omar was eager to hop into a scuba suit and help it onto the ship. He cradled the golden fish right into his conch shell horn and brought it back to meet its family. Or itself, I guess. Now all we needed was one more piece of fish. The 6 little Leviathans had an even better sense of where to find the 7th one. Like the more they came together, the stronger they were. I pulled out my baton again, but turned back to my crew before I made a move. One last portal, I said, and then we're on our own. Are we ready to do this? The 5 of them nodded in unison. The kind of synchronous movement you can only get through deep musical bonding. That was answer enough for me. I played the proper melody and the portal pinged us up, down, and all around, following the frequencies of the final little Leviathan until we landed just in time to see the beaches of Hy Brasil one last time. We looked out at the mystical island where our friends had lived and nurtured us, and watched as it faded from our world, disappearing into the magical mist for another 100 years or so. We blinked, and then suddenly, the island was gone. Like it had never been there at all, leaving nothing in its wake but a calm ocean dusk, and a curious golden fish that popped its head above the surface of the waves, singing a familiar song. The seventh piece of the Last Leviathan. Of course, it had been here all along. The last little Leviathan sang its sweet song, and its 6 siblings sang right back. The other little Leviathans were so excited they began to dance and splash around in their fish tank with so much joy and energy they knocked it off the table. The tank shattered on the floor of our ship in a burst of glass and water, and the 6 golden fish all flippity-floppity-flopped themselves out of the cockpit and into the airlock and back out to the ocean where their 7th self was waiting for them. How long had it been since the last Leviathan had been whole? Since it truly felt like all of itself? I gathered with the crew at the edge of the airlock. We watched and listened as the 7 smaller fish sang their song out one more time. We could see the sound waves travel through the air, crashing together to create the most brilliant bursts of light we'd ever seen. Imagine the most glorious melody you ever heard, manifesting as a fireworks show that could brighten up the deepest corners of the ocean. Seriously though, you'll need to use your imagination, because we were so excited, so stunned by the magical beauty of the moment that, of course, we didn't record it. The whole purpose of our underwater odyssey, and we were all too busy living in the now. We were mesmerized as the music came alive before our eyes, where sound waves bloomed into a supersonic symphony that showed us just how wonderful the world could really be. Honestly, even if we had recorded it, it just wouldn't do it justice. Sometimes the best songs are the ones that you just had to be there for. But those moments stay with you, which means maybe someday you can find the frequency again and do your best to recreate it. That's all a record really is anyway, a memory of a magical musical moment. As the sonic fireworks faded away, we saw the fully formed last Leviathan sitting there before us, its golden fins glistening in the sunset. It was truly a majestic creature, so alone for so many years. But now it finally found itself, or got the band back together, as it were. And now that the little Leviathans had all been reunited, they would never need to seek each other with that lonely song, which meant we would be the very last people to ever hear its song, at least until it lost itself again. Who knew how long that would be? The great last Leviathan looked at us and nodded, and I think it sort of smiled? Can fish smile? I don't know, but that's what it looked like. Like we'd all just shared in something magical together. Then that mighty marine life miracle disappeared beneath the waves again to live its life once more, leaving us alone on the calm and quiet ocean. We all just sort of stood there for a moment. Omar was the first to break the silence. "I can't hear it in the conch," he said, holding up the seashell to his ear. "The ocean, the song, it's all gone." So I said, "I guess you'll have to make your own music now. How else are we going to get you home?" It's true, we were out of fuel. My baton didn't even have the juice for another portal jump. But remember, our ship ran on sound waves. And sometimes, when your tank is empty, you just need to find the right song. And that's exactly what they did. My crew went down to the common room, picked up their instruments, and did their best to bring their memories to life. I listened as I watched the fuel gauge fill back up. Sure, it wasn't exactly the song of the Last Leviathan. And in some ways, it was better because it was a song they found together and they made it all their own. I love a happy ending. Well, that's that, kiddos. See you next time in the jungle. Captain out. Musicland Stories is a collaboration between Starglow Media and Double Elvis. Executive producers from Double Elvis are Jake Brennan and Brady Sattler. Executive producers from Starglow Media are Jed Baker and Agarenish A. Palmer. This episode of Musicland Stories was written by Tom Dunn. Alessandro Santoro is our showrunner. Narration by me, Nikki Lynette. Original score by Scott Janovitz. Story editing by Zeph Lundy. An episode mixed by Matt Tahaney. Grown-ups, you can find more ad-free audio fun for the whole family by subscribing to Starglow Plus on Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts.